Hello, everyone. My name is Ria Ramnarayan, gym instructor at the University of Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome to the UTT 2020 Sport Webinar Series. And thank you for joining us. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the acting president of the university, Professor Prakash Prasad, who will bring greetings on behalf of the university. Professor?
Thank you, Madam MC. I want to say good night to each and every one of you and welcome you to this most important webinar series, the first of it. Special welcome to the very distinguished panel and to members of the cyber audience also. I want to also acknowledge at this point the fantastic work being done by the senior manager, Ian Prasad, and his team. I think they're deserving of congrats on it. Ian, really good work. So national development requires citizens to be healthy and productive, to be focused, to work as a team. These are the very attributes that a nation needs, right, to go forward, and the very attributes of sports. Now, whether it's a team sport, and for instance, Messi in football, if he has people don't pass the ball to him, he can't score. Ronaldo. So it requires harmonious teamwork. Even individual sports, a shot put or 100-meter dash, if you don't have a coach that conditions you, give you mental strength, give you advice on diet, etc., you don't do well. So irrespective of the kind of sport, it's a team that's behind it, a team that ensures the success in addition to the individual performer or team of performers. So I do believe that sports is integral to national development. Now, sports, as I just mentioned, you need to be physically strong and mentally strong. And you have heard that people in the West Indies team complain that the West Indies team, they're not mentally strong. They're very gifted in talent, but you need mental strength also. So mental strength is critical to any sort of sport, any sort of success. Mental health, as we see now in this country, is almost like a pandemic. It's a problem worldwide. So sports can help to bring this about. In fact, people like Dr. Chopra, Deepak Chopra, Dr. Benson talk about the mind-body, connection. For the mind to be healthy, the body has to be healthy and vice versa. In fact, there's an old Latin saying, mens sano in corpore sana. Mens sana in corpore sano. That a healthy mind, a healthy body. There's an old saying as a young man, my father would tell me that your health is your wealth. And a nation's health, right, would bring about wealth. So indeed, this is what we need to do. And I would, at least my own personal view, I'd like to see sports being done in all schools as a national thing. In Germany, some of the schools are called gymnasiums. Sports is integral to development. So again, I have no doubt that if we push this, and Ian, I hope that this thing goes on to the secondary and primary schools, that we become a nation, that if we can't all be great athletes, we become great citizens by being healthy. So again, thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much, President Prasad. Let me take this opportunity to say welcome to our viewers, our listeners across the world. I know that we have some friends from as far as Australia. And let me take this opportunity to say good morning to the Australian people, to the New Zealanders who are with us, good morning as well. And to friends in the US and the wider Caribbean and Latin America, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Professor Prasad, again for that introduction. I mean, when you have a president of a university who supports sport that much, it makes it so much easier for you as the sport department to work hard towards using sport as a tool for national development. What the president didn't tell you is that he himself is a sportsman. I think he has a black belt in karate. So he believes in the development of sport in our country and to use sport as a tool for national development. This evening will be part one in a host of series, a 5-part series of webinars, which we want to use to discuss sport and national development. So we're going to have discussions on sport. And this evening's topic is going to be sport, a vehicle for national development. A vehicle. What does a vehicle do? A vehicle is responsible to take you from point A to point B, from one destination to another. How can we use sport as a vehicle to take us from where we are presently in terms of national development to furthering the cause of national development and to ensure that we're on the right path using sport to promote national development? What is national development, one may ask? National development simply is the ability of a nation to improve the lives of its citizens. And how can we use sport to improve the lives of Trinbagonians and by extension, the world over? We also want to discuss this evening using sport as a tool for social change. We want to discuss sport, health, and wellness, and the importance of community sport within the landscape of Trinidad and Tobago. So what is social change? Social change is referred to as any significant any significant alteration over time in behavior patterns and cultural values and norms. Can sport be used to make this alteration? We look at human development, and we want to refer to sport, not just sport in terms of play. As my son tells me, when he was in Standard 5, he's now in Form 2, when they were told 3 years ago that they were being sent outside for PE, they referred to PE as pointless exercise. No longer was PE physical education, because we know what happens nowadays. Every child is on a phone, every child is on a tablet or a gamepad playing games. But sport and physical activity is the only two disciplines that affects all domains of human development. Through sport, it affects the cognitive. One must use the thinking capacity to make the wise decisions on the field of play. It affects the affective, the emotion, the joy of winning, or sometimes even the sadness of losing. The psychomotor, that kinesthetics, that movement and coordination that one has to ensure that they enhance to be able to use sport and physical activity. And then the psychological and physiological growth and development is important, and it is affected through sport and human development. Sport as a tool for social change. What does sport do? Sport builds friendships. I have friends in Taiwan. I have friends in Germany, in Italy, all through sport. I may not have been the best player, but I understand the value of sport. And because of that value, it has helped me to build friendships all over the world. Sport automatically brings solidarity. It teaches conflict resolution, team building, and leadership. One of our panelists this evening is an excellent leader and has been an excellent leader, and we'll be introducing him shortly, because he has led this country during a time that brought the country together through sport. Sport bridges social identities. When we as athletes are on the field of play, we are all equal and we all have one task at hand, and that's to bring victory and glory for our nation or our team. There's enhanced cooperation on the field of play. There's respect for others. All those are taught through the value of sport. Sport is powerful. In 2000, Nelson Mandela, the great freedom fighter of South Africa, said, sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire, and it has the power to unite people in ways little else does. In 2003, the United Nations developed a resolution using sport as a tool for development and peace building. Pierre de Coubertin, who was the founder of the modern Olympics, and that was founded in 1896, April of 1896. And even before that, this is as far back as 1894, he said he remained convinced that sport is the most forceful, is one of the most forceful elements of peace, and he's confident in his future actions. In other territories, for example, in El Salvador, sport is used as a mechanism to reclaim territories from street gangs. It is used as a motivation for kids to attend school. I remember my primary school days. Friday evening was games. It used to be called games. And that was the day I looked forward to going to school, because we were all going outside to play. So it was motivation for me to attend school at that time. In Canada, it's used to train and educate coaches to work as mentors for kids. And in Madagascar, It's a diversion from the dangers of the street. But sport cannot accomplish national development on its own. There must be collaboration. There must be some type of interaction between sport and health, because we know that non-communicable diseases, lifestyle diseases, how can sport help in terms of those diseases and to reduce the numbers that die in our country as a result of those diseases? Sport and education, I call it the right mix. An educated athlete is one who will make better decisions on the field of play and better decisions in life. Sport and social development. And of course, if we use sport through sport tourism, there's the possibility of diversification of the economy, a topic which we'll go into next week. So it affects even the financial aspect of a country. When doing research showed that the top 5 causes of death in Trinidad and Tobago were, and you will see, coronary heart disease, diabetes mellitus, and diabetes is ranked 5th in, we are 5th in the world ranking based on per 100,000 population. Stroke, first 3 lifestyle diseases. Prostate cancer comes in at 4th, and violence at 5th. Further statistics show that in Latin America and the Caribbean, 23% of that population, which equals to 140 million persons, are obese. Barbados being the #1 in the Caribbean, and Trinidad coming in a very close second at 31% of the population being obese. Sad to say. In terms of Latin America and the Caribbean, 360 million people, which represents 58% of the population, are overweight. As a matter of fact, there are only 3 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean with a lower percentage than 50% in terms of overweight. And that's Haiti and 2 other countries. And they are below 50%. But the majority of the population is overweight. What do we do? Where do we go from here? How do we use sport as a vehicle for national development? And to share in the discussion on that topic this evening, I have a distinguished panel of guests. And I say distinguished because before me, I have their resumes and their accolades. And it is too much to read and to call out this evening. But I want to take the opportunity to welcome with us this evening from the Dominican Republic, Mr. Cristobal Marte Hafiz. Mr. Hafiz is the first vice president of the International Volleyball Federation. He is also a former minister of sport in the Dominican Republic, and he has been a champion for the drive of women volleyball within his country. Mr. Hafiz, I want to say thanks for joining us this evening. Thanks for taking your time off a busy schedule to be part of this webinar. Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago, if even it be via the Zoom platform.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you are all hearing me. It's okay, the voice? Yes? Do you hear me? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for that introduction. I'm very honored to be invited, #1, and to be part of this panel to discuss a topic so important for the youth and even for the development of the world, which is sport. I have sent to you originally 17 points that we consider important topics for the development of sport worldwide. I see that some of those topics already have been put forward by Dr. Ian Pritchard, and that some of them have been already taken in consideration. From the 17 topics, I have been requested to explain 4 of them. So if you allow me, in order to be within the time limit, I will immediately go into those 4 topics. Is it okay?
Oh, let me introduce the rest of the panel and then we come back to you,
okay,
Mr. Hafiz.
As you
Thanks
wish.
a lot. Yes. Okay, let me also take the opportunity to welcome Mr. Larry Romani. Larry, as most of us will know, is a former president of the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee. He served between the years 2004 to 2013. He's currently the CEO of Canuck Broadcasting Incorporation, which was formed in October 2013. He's also the chairman of the Trinidad and Tobago Professional Football League. And he's also the executive member of the Central American and Caribbean Sports Organization. Larry, welcome with us this evening.
You hear me now?
Yes, clearly.
Okay. Thanks for the introduction. All of those things you just read out were past things that in past iterations, I'm no longer on any of those things anymore. It was a great time in my life, and I was very happy to serve the communities of Trinidad and Tobago, the Olympic community, Commonwealth, and so forth. I think that what you're doing is very, very important. Trying to get people to understand sport and the value of sport in development, not only for themselves, but as a nation and as the world, as Cristobal said. And it is only by this type of communication that more and more people start to understand the true value of what sport brings to their lives. And I'm happy to share my ideas and thoughts and my experiences going forward.
Thank you very much, Larry. Allow me now to introduce the only female member on the panel, very strong and determined individual. She needs no introduction, really. Her name is Cleopatra Borrell. Cleo has been the first, and I call her Cleo, I affectionately like to refer to her as Cleo. She has been the first female Olympic athlete and a four-time Olympian ranging from 2004 to 2016. So she first female Olympic finalist, may I correct that? She's also an NCAA Division I national champion of 2002, Trinidad and Tobago's solo female Pan American Games gold medalist in 2015, four-time Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee Sportswoman of the Year, and three-time Commonwealth Games medalist. Cleo, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Good night, everyone.
All right, and we'll hear more of Cleo later on. Next, let me introduce a gentleman who is very passionate about health and wellness. A very good friend of mine. He is from the University of the Southern Caribbean. He's the sport director there, the sport coordinator. He's also the vice president of the Tertiary Sport Association of Trinidad and Tobago. And as I said, he has a passion for health and wellness and the development and advancement of sport in Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Leroy Pierre, it's a pleasure to welcome you to this panel discussion.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm also happy to know that in the discussion, you're looking at the whole aspect of sports, health and wellness, and its importance in active citizenship and the whole aspect of nation building, nation development. So I look forward for the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pierre, and welcome again. Our next panelist, as I said, is a leader among us. Clayton Morris was the captain of the strike squad in 1989. The strike squad that came within 1 point of qualification for the World Cup in Italy in 1990, a time that united the country as only can be seen through sport. Other times that the country united like that was in 2005 when we qualified for 2006 World Cup. And then we also had the winning of a gold medal by Hazley Crawford in 1976, and then again by Keyshawn Walcott. And of course, other athletes who would have brought glory to Trinidad and Tobago. And sport had the power to unite back then and still has the power to do so. Clayton, welcome with us this evening. Clayton is now the coach of the University of Trinidad and Tobago's male football team. Welcome, Clayton.
Thank you, Mr. Pritchard. It's an honor for me to be here, and it's only because of sport. Right? I could attest to that, and I don't think if we have, I mean, it's an hour and a half we have, but if I get the opportunity, I think I would need 2 hours to say exactly what sport did for me in my life, but we don't have that time. So again, it's a pleasure for me to be here. Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Good evening to everyone who around the world who is listening and tuned in.
Thank you very much, Clayton, and welcome. Now, I know most of our viewing audience and our listening audience who would have seen the advertisement for this webinar would have seen 5 panelists. But I have a guest panelist for us this evening. And it's someone who also has a passion for sport. Not just sport, but sport and education. Our guest panelist, special guest, was a primary school teacher. Then he taught at the secondary school level. He's now a curriculum officer at the Ministry of Education. But not only is he involved in education, but he has represented Trinidad and Tobago and the West Indies the world over. I speak of none other than Mr. Samuel Badri. Samuel, welcome to this panel discussion this evening.
Thank you very much, Ian, and it's a pleasure to be here. Good evening to all who are tuned in and the other panelists. I too would be very keen to share my thoughts and experiences, more so during these uncertain COVID times when sport has been essentially at a standstill. So the entire world is looking forward to the rebooting of the sporting apparatus, and perhaps we can share some ideas as to how best that can happen. Looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Samuel. So that's our panelists. And let me say one more thing. Samuel is a product of the University of Trinidad and Tobago Center for Kinesiology, Physical Education and Sport. He recently graduated with his master's degree. So too did Leroy Pierre. So we have products of our university join with us this evening to share in the national discussion. So ladies and gentlemen, we enter the talk. We enter where the air is rare. And we try to pull out valid information from these guests. What's important to note is that many times we have discussions like these, and then 5 years later, we're having the same discussion. It is our hope and our plan as a national university to collate the information that we gather through these 5 webinars and have a change pattern where we can use the information to direct policy, to direct things that will make a change from the grassroots level straight up to the high performance and elite athlete. So we'll start the discussion this evening with Mr. Cristobal Hafiz, our international guest. Mr. Hafiz, give us your experiences and share with us how you see sport being used as a tool or as a vehicle to move us from point A to destination B. Mr. Hafiz.
Thank you, my pleasure. As I said before, we send in 17 topics that, to my understanding, are key to focus and explain worldwide the importance of sport and how to go from point A to point Z, I will say, to enhance the situation. But as a panel discussion, it's not correct for me to present all 17 topics, so I was limited to 4. And I will start right away with the first one. The first one is how can sport be used to bring about national development? Well, if we want to really focus on a real situation, we can take as an example the women's national team of Trinidad and Tobago. And before I go into that, I want to say that sport and recreation have become important dimensions in social and economical life, as well as infrastructure such as multi-sport parks, gymnasium, fitness centers, player fields, social halls, and swimming pools, etc., to generate revenues for self-sustainability and therefore contribute to the national development. By that I mean that we took several years ago a project together with President Mushtaq Mohammed, who was previously member of the Olympic Committee of Trinidad and Tobago, and after that, president of the Trinidad and Tobago National Volleyball Federation. And we started from scratch. We started from zero. The first thing we did, we needed to have knowledge. So we brought in a coach and we started a program, a mini program, because of the funds were not sufficient for that. And we are going to talk about that later on. And we started working with the Trinidad and Tobago Women's National Project. And at the end of 4 years' work, Trinidad and Tobago Women's National Team was able to qualify to the FIVB World Championship, no less, no more. The FIVB World Championship, only the 24 best teams of the world participate. And the Trinidad and Tobago national volleyball, women's national volleyball team under the leadership of Professor Mushtaq Mohammed, that all of you know, or most of you know, was capable to be among those 24 teams that qualified to the World Championship in Japan. But not only that, the Trinidad and Tobago women's national volleyball team was the first women's volleyball team to qualify ever in the history of the Caribbean among the Caribbean Zone of Volleyball Association National Federation and Eastern Caribbean Volleyball Association National Federation. And the second one to qualify, including the Central American countries, because already previously to that, Costa Rica was able to qualify. So it has been a historic, great achievement, which tells us that when you are provided the opportunities, we are able to make it. We are able to achieve the goals that we set forward to. All we need is the opportunities. This is the big problem that we have for the underdeveloped countries. We need the funding, we need the opportunity, we need planification, we need the strategy. And the Trinidad and Tobago National Volleyball Federation was able to do that. Now, they must continue to work to achieve a second World Championship participation, which is very prestigious. Now I go to the second point that I have been requested to talk about, and how does sport benefit the community? Community that participate in sport and recreation develop a strong social bonds. This is number one. They are safer. The place to live in is much better. The environment is more better. The people who live in those communities generally are healthier. Already in the introduction, this was taken care of. And those places where we have physical activities as a priority throughout sport creates a strong ambience of a good community relationship among the citizens. Sport as a recreation also builds stronger, healthier, and happier and safer communities. This is a must. Has been proven all over the place. Also, it helps the constant fight. And this part is very, very important because it's a political situation that the government in each country must consider, must respect, and must support. I repeat, must support. It also creates a constant fight to eliminate, again, delinquency, abuse of illegal drugs, trafficking, alcohol, and other delinquency activities. This means that sport can be used as a human resources to create the necessary principles that today's society are losing day by day. The men and the women of today are not the same as the men and the women of the past. We are losing our principles. We are losing respect, and this must be recovered. And the best way to do it, to my understanding, is through sport. The third point that I want to discuss, which is quite interesting, is the point related to how does sport help the economy. Now, I have done a lot of research on this, and I'm going to put some examples that you all will be surprised. So prepare yourself to listen to what I am going to say about the economy with sport. Sport today has a large role in the U.S. economy, larger than what you really think. For instance, the sport industry accounts over $24.3 billion per year in direct earnings. It has an average salary between $39,000 and $49,000 per job. I repeat, it has an average salary between $39,000 and $49,000 US dollars per job. And more than 1.7 million people depend on the economy that sport is producing annually in the United States of America. Now, I want to go from the top to the bottom. In the Dominican Republic, for instance, baseball, which is our main, like cricket is in Trinidad and Tobago, baseball, they are similar sport, more or less. Baseball is in the Dominican Republic. The income from Major League Baseball player, listen to this, the income from Major League Baseball player is over 400 million US dollars annually. This 400 million US dollar annually impact the Dominican Republic economy by 2.3% annually of the national budget, surpassing the budget of the Ministry of Sport, Agriculture, and Tourism combined. The budget of those three ministries, sport, which I was there for 10 years, agriculture, and tourism combined, the budget of those three ministries are less than the impact that only this one activity of baseball player impact the Dominican Republic general budget. And last but not least, I would like to also present how can a country improve sport? Well, I resumed it in three main activities and then 10 strategies. And I will go very fast because I want to be I want to respect within the time limit. And number one, the first thing a country must do, a government must do, is to recognize sport as an industry. This is the first one. The second one is to promote that industry of sport for education programs in school, above all. This is number two. And the third, these are the three principal ones, are that a good sport budget is needed in order to really help and improve the country through sport. Now, how do we do that? I give you the problem, let me give you the solution. We should work to increase the taxes or to benefit from the taxes of activities such as the lottery, cigarettes, sport betting, and alcohol beverages. So we are taking things that could damage the health of the human being to promote sport that is going to increase the health of the human being. That's how we try to do it here in the Dominican Republic, more or less. You know how it is. And then the 10 effective strategy to promote our sport within those three great activities are the following. How to promote an event begins with good marketing campaign, including social media. Create a promotional event in TV. Social media promotion is very important today. A good governmental finance support based upon previous results. I repeat, based upon previous results. If you don't have results, you cannot go to the government and request money and request support. What are you going to offer them? You need to have results. And then good sponsorship strategy. This is very important in order to have sponsors. And also those sponsors will also create their own independent promotion upon the sport that they are sponsoring. Take advantage of the online ticketed platforms. This is very important to promote the sport. Create social and promotional network around your national team. Create idols. You need to create idols. Like you have in Trinidad and Tobago women's national volleyball players. You need to create idols so the youth that are coming behind will look forward and get interested also in becoming a good athlete. Promote the assistance of spectators by ticketing opportunities and network through our radio, TV, and newspaper programs. Sell of uniform shirts, promotional merchandising, etc. This will create a good ambience and everybody would like to participate. And last but not least is the national tour of your national team to go around the country to promote the event. So these are the 4 points that I wanted to present within the 17 broad points that we think, and this will be good to analyze each one of those points. And we are very similar to Trinidad and Tobago. We're not so far away. We are very similar because we have the same situation. We are we have the same. Okay, something went wrong there. I don't see anybody anymore. Okay, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you see me?
Yes, we see you. We see you.
Well, I don't know. Something went wrong.
We're hearing and seeing you.
Something went wrong. Okay, I only see you now, but I don't see nobody else. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say because I don't see anybody else anyhow. Something went wrong.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hafiz. Quite a lot. We heard Mr. Hafiz talk about the national volleyball women team and their successes. He spoke about sport and the community, about having sport in the community, having strong, healthier, and safer communities. He spoke about government need to support sport in the community because we are losing principles, we are losing respect, we are losing our men and women in society. He spoke about the industry in terms of sport and the economy, about the 24.3 billion annual revenue in the US. And he also spoke about from his own country's personal experience where sport industry is concerned, where Major League Baseball, the sale of Major League Baseball players, the income from that, which is $400 million US, is more than the income, the budget of sport, agriculture, and tourism combined. And then we got some ideas on how to improve sport in the community. And we heard quite a lot from Mr. Hafiz, and I know he has so much more to share. But I want to ask Larry if he could give us a perspective on how do you see sport being used home here in Trinidad and Tobago, based on your experience as a vehicle for national development, based on building on what Mr. Hafiz indicated.
Well, I've worked in sport for well over 25 years in Trinidad, and actually have studied sport from several angles. How it is used, how it is developed through the school system, policy development by the government, elite athlete development, long-term athlete development. And I think that Cristobal's experience is coming from a very wide perspective and from a society that, for instance, when he talks about baseball, there's a huge following of baseball. And there are a lot of heroes, and they understand fans. They understand what it means to follow an athlete from the time he starts until he finishes. And that translates into the numbers of people who follow the sport. And that translates into money that is invested in television and money that is invested in the development of the sport through clubs and a wider society. Trinidad is a little different. We have had a kind of hodgepodge approach to the way sport has developed. As a child, my exposure to sport was football and cricket. There were 2 seasons. Rainy season was football, dry season was cricket. And you had no television, you didn't have much other things to choose, so that you ended up participating in those things. And what participation does is that it gives us the opportunity to love the sport. In order for sport to become a vehicle for anything, people have to be able to participate in sport. They have to have an avenue to participate in sport. They have to have an opportunity to participate in sport. And even prior to participating in sport, the concept of physical education is extremely important to participate in sport well. Because like mathematics and trigonometry and biology and all these things go to produce good doctors and good scientists, physical education produces the physical literacy for us to perform well in sport and to like it. It is important to like sport because it is a physical activity. And if you're not physically endowed with large muscles, fast muscles, you tend to be marginalized. So we stand up to pick a team. It's always the people who are slightly bigger who don't get selected. So they get marginalized. Psychologically, they get blown away. But yet, when the first thing we learn to do as we go into our school is let's run a race to see who could win the race. The problem that we have is we need to find a way. And I'm saying it not from a negative perspective. I'm saying it from the perspective that, listen, we have more facilities than most people have. We have 20-something, is about 250,000 kids in school. Yet sport is not many sports are actually legally being able to be played in schools. Physical education is just not something that is done. And if sport is to become part and parcel of the national development structure, we then have to have a policy that sport is participated in schools as being mandatory. Now, it's interesting that the curriculum division of the Ministry of Sport has in the curriculum that physical education is a part of the development of the brain, just like the emotive and the psychomotor and the cognitive. Physical education is an important part in the development of a human being. The real question is, why isn't it done in a way that complements the way that sport is developed? These things are being developed as silos. So you have the NGBs developing sport in a silo. You have the Ministry of Sport developing sport, but outside the ambit of the Ministry of Education. But the first exposure you have to sport is as a child. So if you go through your whole primary school career with very little exposure to sport, the problem occurs that you're not going to really want to do any sport when you go to secondary school. Now, even if you backtrack to your primary school experience, and which is the experience that we have had, in the Olympic Committee, we ran programs across the south of Trinidad with over 4,000 kids for 5 years. And we tracked every child, every day, every week of the year. One school was thing. What you found is once you gave people an equal opportunity to participate, conflict went down by almost 80% among the classmates. Equality was something that wasn't even a discussion. Everybody looked at one another as just a participant. And this is where sport is very strong. Sport is very strong on humanity, teaching compassion and empathy. The whole question of what another human being feels is important, what winning is, what losing is. All of these emotions, when you encounter those things in life, just like that, it could be a very negative and a very psychological shaken experience. Now, in Trinidad and Tobago, as I say, facilities have never been the issue. We have institutions that have been set up to develop sport. We have even had institutions that have been developed to use sport socially. The issue is how many people like to participate in sport. The other thing is, we need to find out what the perspective is of the population on sport. You may very well find that most people don't care. The people who care about sport are the people who are fans and the people who play sport. But there's a large percentage, when I say large, I mean an extremely large percentage of the population, which includes parents who think that sport is a game. Sport is only to be played. They don't see sport as something as an integral part of the development of a person. And that's because they never really participated. So we need to step back from the perspective of, okay, elite sport is going to create economies of scale, it's going to create heroes, it's going to create a following and a particular. But outside of that, we need a wider population to want to participate in some kind of activity that is either sporting or otherwise. And in order for them to do that, they have to like that. And in order for them to like that, they first have to be able to get to do it, and do it in a way that is equally taught, or equally, there must be an equity in the way we are allowed to participate. And I think that these are a number of issues that we face. I think that overall, sport in Trinidad and Tobago, in the sectors that it has been involved in, has done exceedingly well. We have had, for our size of population, what we have accomplished at the elite level is tremendous. However, when you look at that as a percentage of the population and the people who actually participate, If you went into the NGBs, individual NGBs, and you looked at how many people are involved in those NGBs, if, for instance, you look at the sport of cycling, cycling is something that traditionally we have done exceedingly well in. But in cycling, if you check out how many people actually cycle, it is less than 1,000 people. Similarly, track and field, which have done exceedingly well, the number is very small. Football, on the other hand, where we have a large percentage of the population interested in from the perspective of looking at it on TV, is over 300,000 people that participate. The question is, how do you get people to like and to love sport so that it then means something to them, so that it draws them away from the other things that they have a passion for, whether it be deviant or non-deviant? And how do we get parents to understand the importance of participation in sport, and in primary school, the importance of ensuring that physical education is placed on the curriculum during school hours? And I think that these are the things that I have grappled with for my entire life. And it is my pet peeve that physical education is not seriously taken on in the curriculum. And I think that to me is the major reason why sport has never really taken off in Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, we do exceedingly well, but we could have been, for it economically to be as beneficial as Cristobal says, the nation as a whole has to love sport. And right now, from where we sit, I think that you will find if you do surveys and so forth, that's where we need to work on.
Thank you very much, Larry. Quite a lot indeed. A perspective from someone who has, as he said, over 25 years in sport. And coming out from Larry's discussion, can be related to Cristobal's as well. We heard the word opportunities mentioned both in Cristobal's presentation, and Larry also spoke about the fact that we need to create opportunities and opportunities to get people involved in sport. We heard Larry talk about the need to merge various sectors, to understand that needs to be done between sport and education. There needs to be a merging of understanding between health and education, health and sport, in order for sport to realize its true potential. Cristobal also spoke about policy. Larry also talk about policy. And in doing some research, I saw that in Quebec, for example, 64 million Canadian dollars, which is approximately 317 TT dollars. In that one place, that one state of Quebec, they have invested that to promote physical activity and sport in their primary schools. And that is to ensure the expected outcomes that they're looking for is improved cognitive skills, educational achievement, physical and mental health, more social and relational skills. And that's a policy that says that physical education and sport must be engaged by students in their primary schools for at least 60 minutes per day. And that's the policy on sport in Quebec. Now, we have those two perspectives, and we realize a commonality in some of the things that they spoke about. I want to introduce now, bring on the set, Cleopatra Borrell. Cleo, you hail from a community called Mayaro. So that's a rural community that's now quite changed to what it used to be. But you would have come through the rural community and you had made it through that community straight up to the elite level. That also provided what we're speaking about, what Larry and Cristobal spoke about, opportunities for you. You ended up on a scholarship abroad, studied abroad, and would have been exposed to sport and national development in the US. You understood from an athlete's level as well how sport played a significant role in your life and in the lives of all the athletes who you went to school with and people in the NCAAs, and how also it affected the economy in the America. Share with us your experience on how you think sport can now be used in Trinidad and Tobago, adding to what Larry and Cristobal said, for a tool or a vehicle for national development.
Thank you, Mr. Pritchard. Well, to correct you, I actually migrated to the US on an academic scholarship. So I really struggled to have the opportunity to be an athlete here in Trinidad and Tobago because I was from a rural community. My participation was really limited to the secondary school sport days and these sorts of activities. So I really didn't get my chance until I went to the US. And when we're talking about having physical education every day for 60 minutes, of course, I support that point of view, but I recall growing up in Mayaro and during recess or lunchtime playing with my friends, and you get back into the classroom and you're wet, you're soaking with sweat. And at that time, teachers permitted that sort of behavior, and I don't think such is the same today. Either way, going through the NCAA process, I think that sport can really be a vehicle for national development if perhaps we can just let sport be sport. If we can just promote sport and promote the fact that there is really a sport for everyone. I understand that some of us are more athletic and more in tune with sporting activities, but we have to look at perhaps some of our females in society and the way that women look at sport as not a competitive activity, but some, not myself, of course, but some women look at sport as a social activity. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think if we try to promote sport in a way that's beneficial for individuals and really provide a host of opportunities, we can then get the benefit out of sport, meaning we can support physical activity and not the competitive end of sport. And then we can get the sort of translation into better physical health, socialization, and all these social aspects that we're looking at in terms of sport. Of course, I went through the NCAA system where we have competitive athletics and a wide range of athletes we have athletes who move from the Caribbean in general into the US. And the big difference is the size of the investment that universities are able to place into their programs because of income generated by income sports. And of course, we know that all sports are not income generating sports. So you're talking about American football and primarily basketball. So how are we going to treat with these shortcomings? We have to pick things and really go through and find individual solutions that work here in Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you very much, Cleo. And in terms of what Cleo ended her discourse on, in terms of solutions that work here in Trinidad and Tobago, we oftentimes refer to things as international best practices. We look at things that are done in Australia and we wholesale and take them and bring them to Trinidad and expect them to work. We look at things that are done even in neighboring countries. We equally and want to measure with every country. But one of the things we don't look at is what is pertinent to Trinidad and Tobago, that pertinent cultural best practice. And Cleo, thank you for raising that point, because that is something that we definitely need to look at in terms of using sport as a national development tool in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, in your discourse, you also spoke about opportunities. You spoke about the opportunity for better socialization. Larry also included sport must be part of the curriculum. And luckily for us this evening, we have somebody who is a curriculum officer who understands the value of sport in Samuel Badri. So Samuel, why has sport, give me for your perspective, why has sport lost its way in the primary schools, where we expect to nurture and grow our major talent from, where we expect to start with that training and that love for sport and understanding the value of sport? Why is it that there's such a focus on the academics that sport seems to have lost its way? And how do we find sports way back in the education system?
You're right, Ian. There's too much competitiveness in terms of the academics at the primary school. And just to echo the sentiments of Mr. Romani, in terms of physical education at the primary school, and I just want to run my Samuel Badri, former cricketer cap, another curriculum officer cap. Physical education is a compulsory core subject in the primary school curriculum. In addition to maths, language arts, science, social studies, VAPA, Agri-Science, Spanish, and VCCE, Physical Education, forms one of the 9 subjects that all students at the primary school must do. So teachers have a responsibility to fulfill that requirement. Whether it is done to the standard that we would like or not is up for debate. But the fact is that the Ministry of Education recognizes the importance of physical education and ensured that it is placed on that core curriculum list. The thing for me is that we have placed so much of an emphasis on the academics because of placement for SEA that we have lost sight of the importance of physical education. And again, to echo the sentiments of Mr. Romani, if we miss students at the primary school level, we miss them for life. When they go to secondary school, it is hardly likely that they are going to participate. And if we want to use sports as a vehicle for anything, we first of all need to get into that vehicle. We need to get children playing sports. We need to get them exposed and give them opportunities. I want to touch a little bit on governance. And I think that is an important element that we have failed miserably at here in Trinidad and Tobago. When you look at the national governing bodies, the NGBs, and you look at how much disputes there are almost on a daily basis. And the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association, the Trinidad and Tobago Gymnastics Federation, the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board, and they all seem to be moving in their own separate directions. I think we need to streamline the operations of these national governing bodies so that we are all singing from the same hymn book. As it stands, everyone is operating in a silo and they are doing more harm than good. For me, some of these acts of parliaments that have been formed to use the constitutions of these organizations are archaic and outdated, and we really need to get up to date with modern sports. We need to look at elitism versus recreational sports in the primary school, for instance, and secondary school as well. A lot of schools spend perhaps 80% of their sport budget on one team, maybe the cricket team or the football team, and the next 20% for the rest of the school population. You might have 300 students sharing off that 20%, and the 80% is just for 15 students. And I think we need to be more equitable. We need to also look at what we see in other jurisdictions and perhaps, like you mentioned, take the best practices and see how they can best fit in our scenario. And you mentioned Australia. What Australia did, they did a longitudinal study to determine the benefits of physical education. And it has been published, and everyone knows the importance of physical education, not only for cognitive development, physical, emotional, social. And we need to have our students, our young boys and girls, actively engaged in physical activity, not only for elitism, but also for recreational purposes, so that they get that healthy lifestyle, they get that social understanding of, winning and losing, discipline, cooperation, and all of those social benefits. And what they've also identified with their study is that when we went to primary school, a teacher in particular who was interested in sport is the one who really carried the physical education program. So you're a sports master. In these times, their teachers rarely show that level of commitment, and they don't go past their working hours, and that is their right. When we went to primary school, we stayed back after school and we played until it got dark. Now we no longer see that. The grounds are empty after school and on weekends. So there's no longer that opportunity for students to be engaged in any sort of sport, any sort of physical activity. One of the suggestions that was put forward to the Ministry of Education is to have a specialized physical education at primary schools. Now, that is not feasible to have at this time, based on obviously the economy and so on. But what we can do is that we can have coaches assigned. The NGBs need to take up some responsibility as well. Coaches assigned to communities where these schools are based, so that children after school hours can engage in meaningful sporting activities. And in the absence of that, I don't think we are moving forward, because children who don't participate in sport at the primary school, at the formative years, will never participate in sport, or less likely to do so.
Thank you very much, Samuel, for that perspective. You spoke about NGBs working in silos, and it's pleasing to mention this, in that in some discussions recently with the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee, they have seen the importance of having everybody on board. They are seeing the importance of having everybody singing, as you said, from the same hymn book. So in terms of professional standards, in terms of governance in sport, Recently, they had a webinar on CCCP, Coaching Certificate Program, and the attendance was tremendous from various sectors, the Cycling Federation, the Football Association. So there is that move towards what you're speaking about. And I want to congratulate the TTOC at this point in time for such a move in that right direction. So I want to introduce now, I'm bringing Mr. Pierre. So we have spoken quite a lot on the development of sport and national development using sport as a tool. Mr. Pierre, there is a notion or there's a narrative that says there's a difference between health and wellness, and that health and wellness serves no purpose in society really, and it's just get involved in sport. Is there a difference between health and wellness, and how do you see health and wellness playing a role in terms of national development and reducing maybe some of those lifestyle diseases? Mr. Pierre?
Thank you. I'm enjoying the discussion, I must say, and we can also link the whole notion of health and wellness to what is happening in national development. Now, some pundits would put health and wellness on the same level, but health is basically the overall condition of the mind and the presence or absence of disease, while wellness, on the other hand, is optimal health and vitality encompassing the 6 dimensions of wellness. So when we look at health and wellness in terms of national development, we think about the physical, we think about the intellectual, and all the speakers earlier alluded to some of these, the interpersonal, spiritual, emotional, and so on. And they all play a role in national development. It's about how you live. When you think about wellness, how you live, decisions you make about life. When we look at sport in terms of high performance, we think about power and performance. But when we look in terms, as national development, of course, but when we look in terms of community development, we also think about pleasure and participation. And that's where the whole notion of wellness comes in, that you can participate in sport for your own health. We can think back about years gone by, and Ms. Cleopatra spoke about it earlier, when you could run in school and sweat. Now, technology and automation, totally throw that out the window, so that even our teachers are technology driven. So they don't need to be out in the hot sun sweating with the students when they could be on the computer, laptops, tablets, and so on. So that health and wellness can be used as a tool for national development. There's a difference, but when you look at wellness, it is about the decisions you make about life in spite of your conditions, whether it be an ailment due to deformity or so. In spite of your deformity, in spite of your condition, you can still make decisions or wellness decisions.
Thank you for that perspective, Mr. Pierre. So is it that you're saying that if we get involved in health and wellness activities, that we expect to get a healthier society, we expect to get healthier citizens? Some research by Taylor et al. Indicated that a healthier population leads to a more productive population, less time away from work. So are you saying that health and wellness activities then, once we get involved in those, then it leads to a healthier population, less numbers in terms of non-communicable diseases or lifestyle diseases, in terms of that those number 1 causes of death? Because those numbers that we have put on, in 2007, they were first, second, and third, and 2017, they were still the first, second, and third cause of death. So is it that you're saying this health and wellness drive will improve the lives of citizens to an extent that we could expect better citizens, healthier citizens, and more productivity?
Right, there are 2 authors, and I would like to refer to them. One is Jay Coakley, who spoke about sports in community and how important it is for the development of our society in terms of mitigating against different ailments, as you spoke about earlier. And then we have Fred Coulter, who spoke about sports in society again, and the importance of using sports to develop active citizens, to help our citizens remain healthy. Most times in our universities and in our schools, we spend most of the budget on academics, the books, what is happening in the classroom. And after that, and right now, most of us who went to institutions or still at institutions, we give our students so much work to do that there's little time to spend on their own health. And we see when we get out of the world of work that even at our workplaces now, we take a lot of time from work because we spend time dealing with our medical conditions. So that Fred Coulter and Jay Oakley, they spoke about the importance of health and exercise and how they interact with each other. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Pear. I want to go a bit to Mr. Morris. And Mr. Morris, I want to thank you for your patience thus far. Because the discussions have been so interesting that it's difficult to move from one presenter to the next quickly. But Mr. Morris, one of the outreach programs I know that you were involved in at the University of Trinidad and Tobago involves your work with persons in the prison system. And you spoke highly about the results that you saw in terms of your interaction with the persons at the maximum security prison, using futsal as a sport to bring about some type of change. I know you also speak highly about community sport and how community sport can be used to train our young people so you don't have to make the interventions in the prisons. Share with us some of the interventions that you would have done at the prison system through futsal and how you feel instead of having to do it in there, sport can be used for younger persons to ensure that their activities are more on a positive light. Click not unmute his mic. Mr. Morris, you have to unmute your mic, please.
No sound.
Okay, Mr. Morris, you're live now?
Yeah, you hear me now, yeah?
Yes, we hear you clear.
Yeah, thank you again. As Mr. Romini said, everyone has a right to participate in sport. People need sport, and they have the right to partake in it anywhere and anytime, regardless of who they are. We have this way that someone is being convicted or someone is being sent to prison, and we feel that that person should just, quote unquote, just stay in the prison and rotten. But in truth and in fact, we forget that these people still have to come back out in society. And even if they don't come back out, they are there for life. They still have their family on the outside. And with the technology now, as we know, most of sometimes the hit, what you would say hits, is from behind the walls. So there's a need, as I said, for these people has the right to participate in sport. I'm a strong believer that God uses ordinary people to carry out his extraordinary plans. I would like to thank the University of Trinidad and Tobago and the Prison Authority for granting me the opportunity to use futsal as my outreach initiative, which assisted with the rehabilitation of its clients. As an employee of Petrotrin through the corporate social responsibility, I served the prison there for 25 years. As we know, futsal is still fairly a new sport to Trinidad and Tobago. It was introduced to Trinidad and Tobago in 2004, and I was given the responsibility to coach the national team. And putting that national team together, most of the guys came from in these what we will call the high-risk communities. And I remember in 2008, while on a tour with the national futsal team, this came to me that this word futsal, there must be something there's a meaning. And I coined this phrase, friends united to save another life, futsal. The futsal development program that started was started in the MSP prison in 2017, which saw 42 inmates graduated in December that year. And most of these, the inmates who participated in these programs are what you call the remanded inmates. They are not convicted. They're in prison and they don't know a day when they have in court. They don't know what time they're coming out. So I introduced this program, and when we taught these 42 inmates to coach the game, to play, to referee, timekeepers and what have you, then we had a caravan which would now spread into the other divisions, other prison departments. The teams that came forward because we formed a league. The team that participated, they came from the different departments in the prison. You have the different division. What effect this had? This brought about positive vibes. In addition, because you had the inmates now coaching, someone was coaching their enemy who wanted a Muslim war. The names of the teams, I advise the captains that the names of the teams, we're on 10 teams and they must have positive names. And the names as follows: restoration, redemption, roots. And the word roots, it stands for respect. The other O is for you have to respect the official, you have to respect the opponent, you have to respect the teammates, and you have to respect the supporters. Right? And then he went on to remand, respect, recruit, ballers, evolution. So all the names were positive names. 2 players, I remember when these guys come into play, but we had to come in from the Port of Spain, they would come in handcuffs, right? Because they're coming from a high-risk prisoner. They come in handcuffs. And I remember during one of the games, the officers forgot the key for these 2 guys who handcuffed together. And they sat watching the first half in this game, cheering on the team. I mean, that hurt my heart. And the second half, they got the keys and they were released and they came on and played. What again, another thing that one of the officers who transporting these inmates, during one of the game, a goalkeeper got injured and he changed his uniform and get involved in the game. Now, the people who supported this initiative, right? And I must mention the other technical staff, Mr. Marie Gonzalez, Brent Elder. These are members of the the former members of the national futsal team. You had Mr. Peter Young, Mr. Raymond Timke, who's now deceased, Ronald Brayton, who is the manager of the national team, and Professor Imbia was invited on 3 occasions. And I remember the first time when he was invited, I asked him to offer a few words on behalf of UTT. And he was amazed to see what was taking place. I mean, he finished his speech in tears. This, to me, was really, really, a lot of people, as I said, feel that these inmates, these guys are cast out, but again, sport is a very, very powerful tool. And again, what we used was love is the answer. Love is the answer. Out of the league, 28 players were selected. And as I said, most of these players are remanded prisoners and given the opportunity, as I said, they could go on to make a national team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Clayton. A powerful program indeed. I want to open the floor now to any of the panelists who want to add. Let me start with Cristobal. Cristobal, could you share with us maybe how a nation's prestige? Now, there's a phrase which I like to call, I say, a nation's best billboard is an athlete. A nation's greatest billboard is an athlete. 5 years from now, you will hear about Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and some of the other athletes, Tiger Woods, Usain Bolt. How do we promote sports? Since a nation's billboard is its greatest athlete and sport increases the prestige of a nation, how do we get our youngsters at a very early age to understand that maybe they can strive to be like, but if even they are not such a superstar, their lives will be better off by being engaged in physical activity. And I want a feedback and a perspective from maybe all the panelists on that. Cristobal, let's start with you.
All the attention, and very important because several of the panelists have touched this. I just want to contribute the following for everybody to take this note, look it up, and think about it. In 2016, in Germany, for every €1 invested in sport, physical education, and activities related at a nationwide, the return in health was 3.75. 3.75 euros in 4 years. Today is 4.11 as of December 31st. 4.11. This means every 4 years is going up almost 1%. The country, Germany, is saving. They are saving 1% every 4 years for the investment they are doing in physical education, physical activities, and sport. For every euro, right now, they are saving 4.11 euros in health. This is something that we must think about, and not us. The government must think about this. They must look at it as an investment from that perspective. They're going to save money in health. They're going to have a healthier population. Especially in these days, we need a healthier population. We don't know when this pandemic is going to go away. Nobody can predict it. So think about it. For every euro, 4 years ago, they were saving 3.75 euro. And 4 years after, they are saving 4.11 euros for every euro they invest in sport, physical education, and activities. Okay. Now, what you are saying is very important. I'm not going to talk about Michael Jordan or LeBron James. I want to talk about my people, my experience, the one I have over 30 years. When we the main sport in the Dominican Republic is baseball. So we have a lot of heroes. We have Pedro Martinez. We have Alex Rodriguez. Alex Rodriguez makes $400 million for 3 years where he was playing. Alex Martinez, Sammy Sosa. The list goes on. I can stay all night. But they are individual heroes. They get together every 4 years and they go to the World Classic, Baseball Classic. They won it already 3 times. They beat USA, they beat Japan, they beat the best country, but they won it 3 times already. It's okay. Now, they beat Puerto Rico, which is very important for us. Now, the second most important sport, team sport right now that everybody's looking at are the Queens of the Caribbean, the women's volleyball team. They started out in 1990 from scratch, from zero. I mean zero, nothing at all. There was no volleyball in the Dominican Republic. Today, as we speak, they are number 8 in the world. A small country, a small island divided in 2. 2/3 Dominican Republic, 1/3 Haiti. Well, a lot of problems. We have more problems or the same problems you have in Trinidad. A lot of problems, health, nutrition, electricity, transportation, you name it. This is our reality. This is our reality. That we are improving, yes, we are improving as a society. Within that improvement, sport is very important. Now, these girls, not the ones that started in 1990, not the ones that got the gold medal at the Pan American Games in 2003, but the ones who got the gold medal right now in 2019, again, at the Pan American. They have won the gold medal 7 times in the Central American and Caribbean game. 7 times in a row. We are already equal to Cuba. And if we win again in Panama, we are going to surpass Cuba at a gold medal level in Central American and the Caribbean. Now, what is the importance? They have created a dream for thousands, hundreds of thousands of kids in the streets, in the poor neighborhoods, in the countryside, the rural area, like you said, like Cleo said. They look up to these girls and they say, hey, I have to walk 5 miles, 8 miles, 10 miles to go to school every day. I got to walk 3 miles to get a bucket of water to bring to my house some water from the river. This is our reality, the same as yours. And they look up to this girl and say, hey, Milagro Cabral, she has a brand new car. She changed her car every year. Betania de la Cruz, look the mansion she has. She's making $1 million for 6 months playing professional in Turkey. Hey, I want to be like her. Niverka, she speaks 5 languages. She's got a scholarship in Switzerland. Oh, look at Gaila. She got a scholarship in the NCCA and the NCAA because she's a great player. So they want to be like, they are idols, they are heroes. They want to be like them. So we have created this environment where the kids look up to volleyball as an opportunity to change their life, to change their financial situation, not only their financial situation, but the financial situation of the whole family, my friend. And you can come here, look at it, and it's a reality. When I started in 1990 to support volleyball, there was no parking lot. Today, the parking lot we build is too small, full of cars, brand new cars. They have to park in the street. We have to pay now 2 guys to take care of the cars. This is a reality. We have players at a world level, real heroes. Betania de la Cruz, she's ranked number 2 as a spiker. Lisbeth Mejia, she's ranked number 5 as a middle blocker. Bryalyn Martinez, ranked number 1 as a spiker. Brenda Castillo, ranked number 1 as a libero player. And they came from those poor neighborhoods. They came from those rural areas where they had to walk 10 miles to go to school, where they had to take 3 or 4 miles to get a bucket of water from the river. Today, their life is totally different. Totally different. Opportunities. We have the talent. Trinidad and Tobago has the athletic talent better than anybody you can think of. I have seen it with my eyes. I have seen it with my eyes, not only in volleyball, in all the sports. You have the talent. You have the physical conditions for that. We need to provide our youth. We need to provide our people the necessary opportunities to develop.
Thank you very much, Cristobal. And Cristobal continues to speak about opportunities. And I want to strongly agree with all the opportunities. There will be no creativity. There will be no end result if the opportunities are created. Any of the panelists want to chime in on this part? Larry or Samuel?
Yeah, I think Cristobal, when he speaks of opportunity, I think it's extremely important. I think that without opportunity and desire, there is no success. The issue always comes back down to primary school, the opportunity to participate, and what that leads to. The issue of wellness and so forth is critical in it being introduced in primary school. And I'll give an example. Between 2009 2011, the Olympic Committee, actually 2009 and 2015, we were doing this project in South. And we had partnered with us Johns Hopkins University, who would analyze the data. And we took all the schools in Point Fortin and all the schools in the county of Mayaro. it numbered over about 4,500 kids. And we ran tests on all of them throughout over a period of 3 years, and we tracked them. And it was instructive to find out that a white paper was done by Johns Hopkins, and it was published and so forth. Over 30% of those kids were pre-diabetic. 30%. 7% were undernourished, were considered in starvation. And it is interesting that this is never picked up. And it cannot be picked up if our focus is only on academics. Not even the parents of these children understood how important it was to identify that your child is pre-diabetic. And all you needed to do was at least an hour twice a week in activity to be able to start creating the wellness and the well-being in the person in order for them to alleviate that condition. Even more than that, the children who participated in our program across the board, their cognitive thing improved tremendously, their schoolwork improved tremendously. The whole concept of well-being, the happiness, the contentment, the fact that they were getting twice a week, 35 minutes at a time to come, gave them a whole different perspective. And this is where we need to understand, where parents need to understand, because parents drive a lot of what happens at curriculum. I know that because I understand the system. The PTA drives a lot of that. And we need to understand that we're really killing the population by not having activity from that level. And as Samuel said, if you don't get on the vehicle as a child, you never get on the vehicle again. And I want you to pay attention to one point. We talk about the economic benefit of all of this. You imagine that 20 years ago or 30 years ago, children were not participating properly in physical education. Even 15 years ago. These children, they were the ones that did extremely well cognitively and went to university and came out with fantastic degrees, came back to Trinidad, and are now the marketing managers and directors of all the companies in Trinidad that spend money in advertising. None of them have experience or any love for sport. Do you think that they're going to put money in sport? When they get the budgets, there is no way that you're going to have to know the boss, the managing director. The managing director or the president of that company had a love sport in order for you to get a cent of that budget. And this is the problem we face. We have a whole generation of people who did not participate, who don't like sport. And then when they go into their jobs, they get the opportunity to help sport, but they don't choose to help sport because they think sport is playing. They think sport is something that we do just so. They don't understand how it integrates into our own feeling of happiness and peace and the feeling of well-being. It's one of the few things, as you described at the beginning, that involves the entire brain. It is one of the few things outside of dance and music that you do without only in the present moment in time. You cannot participate in sport and think what you did last week or what you're going to do next week. You have to be present at that moment in time. And that is where we find peace. That is where we find happiness. And this is there's so many aspects of this, Ian, that we could talk for hours and hours and hours on the little elements. Before, like when I traveled to Malaysia in 1998, nobody in Malaysia knew, the people on the street, nobody knew who Trinidad and Tobago was. But everybody knew who Dwight York was, who Atto Bolden was, and who Brian Lara was. Every single person I talked to who couldn't even speak English. And you say, come from Trinidad, they don't know what the hell that is. You say Dwight York, Arsenal. He was in Manchester at that time. Eh? The whole thing is that, yes, we have great men that create, that we have heroes out there. But the sustainability of that is where the issue is. And the sustainability can only be linked back to an equitable opportunity for participation at the primary school level.
Samuel, I want to open up you to give a point on this discussion here. And then I'll turn to Cleo.
Yeah, definitely. Again, I want to echo the sentiments of Larry. I think we don't see sports as a viable option in Trinidad and Tobago. We see it more as a pastime, and unless there is a cultural change, that we're not going to see any results. And I think also there must be some sort of incentives for employees and parents and so on who don't necessarily have the time after work and in traffic and stuck all over the place. I think we need to have more families involved. If we have the entire family involved, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters involved. So apart from the school, of course, that's where we're going to start. We need to have children participating in sports from a school level, all sports, not just the cricket and the football. And for that to happen, we need to have teachers who are well trained and who have the passion and enthusiasm to carry out that mandate. In the absence of that, we're going to have one or two teachers throughout the country who has the passion, and a lot of schools will not participate. We're going to have an exacerbated situation come September if school does reopen then, where an entire term was lost. So the focus, if not before, will be even more so now on the academic subject. So if physical education was placed on the back burner then in September, don't even talk about physical education. Everyone wants to do the maths and the ELE and the science and social studies, right? So the situation is going to be exacerbated come September when school reopens, and it's not something that I really look forward to. I want to see our young boys and girls, especially at the primary school, when they are now developing their attributes, their physical attributes. We want to expose them to as many sports as possible: table tennis, football, cricket, netball, basketball, whatever the case may be. And then when they go into secondary school, they can specialize. But if they don't have that love and that affinity for sports at that level, it's going to be difficult. Also, I want to see companies, I want to see the ministries, I want to see the government giving opportunities and incentives for parents and adults to get involved in sports and give them time periods, allotments during the week when they can take an hour off work and go to the gym or go to some sporting activity. We need to have a cultural change. It just can't be from one direction. We need to bombard it in all directions from a nutrition standpoint as well, and only then can we see meaningful change.
You?
I agree with what Samuel is saying. We have to look at quality of life, and we cannot here in Trinidad and Tobago expect to just go through school and then start working. And when we start running into problems later on in our life, then try to be active and to get physically active, get fit, etc. It's really a quality of life issue. And I think that sport has a place to play in that in terms of promoting wellness amongst our citizens. So I agree with the panel. We do have to get sport in primary schools. We have to make it important. And I think one of the ways that we can sell it to parents is that, of course, children who are involved in physical activity tend to perform better in the classroom. And when we can make the link between academics and athletics, the sort of goal to be a student athlete, to be a well-rounded person, I think that that's when we're going to really see transformation in terms of the sporting landscape. To identify talent at a very young age is difficult. I know we're getting better at it, but we can't always pick out those gems within the masses. So we really have to get the masses moving for the physical conditioning and for the health benefits, and then we're going to get our elite athletes out of that pool. So I really believe in getting sport into the primary school. As a primary school student, I don't know how I could have possibly survived without sport. I mean, there were days when I was outside all day long, and I still passed, and I still went to school. So at such an early age, we have to understand how children develop and what they need holistically. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cleo. And to all listening on viewing audience, this is how it gets. I mean, I played football, so we had this webinar for 90 minutes, and I thought within 90 minutes we would have been able to win this battle, but certainly we have gone beyond 90 minutes, and I asked you to bear with us as we enter into extra time to see if we could pull out a little more information. So we asked the referees and the fourth official to give us a little more time to just engage in discussion. As we're on the topic of football, Clayton, I want to bring you in one time to see if you could share with us your experience where community sport is concerned and its value to the young people as we talk now.
Well, definitely, and adversities into opportunities. I was born and I grew up in St. Anne's. You know, it didn't have, it was very difficult to get football boots, right? But, you know, thank God for the community support where I played cricket, football, basketball, netball, pitch marble. So you had that coordination and balance was, you know, that was natural, that came natural. And they also had the community support, you know, and, you know, not to say that everything I did was, you know, was correct. I remember, you know, guys going to do steal or whatever, and they would protect me. You don't come. So up front, you did notice that I had that quality to go forward. So, you know, community support is very, very important. You know, it's very, very important. And I must say that is what really helped me, you know, along the way. I wasn't fortunate to go to a secondary school per se, but I still was able to be able to take that, as I say, adversities, take the opportunity that I got and make it work for me through football, because 85 or 95% of the things I achieve in my life is through football. So sports is definitely a vehicle that could help you to, you know, for national development. And as I said earlier, I mean, I could go on for about 2-3 hours to tell you the adversities I went through, and I took the opportunities. And here today, as you mentioned in my introduction, that I'm a true leader. So again, the community that I came from, you know, that support really helped me to where I'm today, and I'm very thankful for that.
Thank you, Clayton. And before I bring on Mr. Pierre to give his closing remarks, Larry, you spoke about Johns Hopkins University assisting with data collection and analyzing data. I'm happy to say that the University of Trinidad and Tobago, the national university, is nicely poised now to engage in such. We have a Department of Kinesiology, Center for Kinesiology, Physical Education and Sport, and they are so excited about using the data collected, about using information collected to make the change, because we can talk from now till, as they say, the cows come home, and we don't have the necessary data and we don't have the necessary information to guide that process, then we will just continue to talk. So that's right. I can guarantee you that at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, we have a Master's in Health Administration program which will deal with issues on health. And as I said, the Center for Kinesiology, Physical Education and Sport, we are oversubscribed every year in terms of students coming in. And we want to use the opportunity, and we are going to use the opportunity, and that's headed by Dr. Kerry Dollaway. We're going to use the opportunity to ensure that our drive and our direction is data-driven and research-driven, not just talk. So as I said from the beginning, this conversation is opening the door to lead towards that direction. I want to thank all the panelists. I also want to say, I heard people mention about sponsorship, and sponsors needed to come on board. And Larry, you spoke about the persons who would have gone away and studied and come back, and we are thankful at the Center for Sport and Recreation to NLCB. As you see, we are wearing some lovely T-shirts that mark NLCB and UTT Patriots. And NLCB joined it with us to ensure that they put the money where it is necessary to ensure that our student athletes get some type of assistance. And we are asking on all corporate Trinidad and Tobago to join in the fight where we use sport as a vehicle towards national development. It may be in terms of funding policy-driven documents, it may be funding research. It doesn't have to be funding an elite athlete, but anywhere that we could do some funding to ensure that sport is used as a tool towards social change and national development, we welcome it. So with that, Mr. Pierre, if you would like to say a few words, and then we'll entertain about 2 or 3 questions, because I know that the audience has been patient, and we don't want to just leave without taking some of their questions. So Ms. Cox will be online soon to ask about 2 or 3 questions before we end tonight. Mr. Pierre?
Yes, and this pandemic would have shown us, our country, the importance of movement, because during the restrictions, we found that most families would have found a park, savannah, playground in order to move. So you see parents and children moving, playing with a ball on a swing, running. and it continues up to now. It shows that our citizens are aware of the importance of movement and physical activity. What we need to do is to get that drive into the primary schools, because that is where it starts. We are losing our citizens from the primary school level. I would like to shout a challenge. I know it happened with some of our elite athletes, but I'd like to shout a challenge to our athletes in general, that we go to our PTA meetings, as Mr. Romani spoke to earlier, that we go to our schools and we speak to the children and the parents about the importance of sports and where it can take you, so that even in these formative ages, that they can make informed decisions in relation to sports. Growing up, and then we have the religious aspect, where there are some religions who feel that sports shouldn't be played whatsoever, you know, so that you just should not participate in sports. It is competition. There should not be a competitive aspect. But sports is really a vehicle for national health, national development. And if our athletes take time and go into the schools, speak to parents, speak to teachers, speak to our students at the primary school level, we can get more students being involved in sports on a national level. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pierre. Ms. Cox, can you engage the discussion from the participant side? Questions to any of our panelists?
Good evening to all. I have a few questions from the YouTube platform. The first question is directed to Ms. Cleopatra Burrell from Mr. Osuna. He asks, do you think enough emphasis is given to the rural communities? Also, if not, how can we improve this?
I think that we do have to spend some time and effort to tailor programs for our rural communities. And I think in doing that, we should develop national programs whereby we have community-wide programs where people in the community, in different communities, can get together and compete within their communities, and then have some sort of a national community games. Of course, people enjoy recreation, we enjoy being active, but if we have further motivation in terms of some sort of community-wide games, I think that that's a way we can find talent that may be in the rural areas, but definitely we can see from, of course, track and field is my area of expertise. If we look at our national track and field team, we'll see that we have quite a number of athletes who've come from rural areas. And for a country the size of Trinidad and Tobago, we really have to tap into all of our talent and resources. So by having most of our programs, or I should say most of our consistent programs, saturated in the urban areas, we're really losing a lot of talent that we can't afford to lose. So we have to make an effort to reach out to our youngsters in the rural communities. Thank you.
The second question is directed to Mr. Samuel Badri. This is from Boxing Beyond the Ring. He asks, or she asks, are there any repercussions when the PE part of the curriculum is not fulfilled?
Yes, there are repercussions. I think, like I said before, it is a mandatory subject. It's a mandatory area that must be covered. And the principal, as the administrative head of the school, has to firstly ensure that all subject areas in that 9 compulsory core subjects must be taught. And if that is not happening, then he has to make the necessary reports on the school supervisor and the curriculum division, and then steps will be taken. But I should also mention that at the curriculum division, we do regular school visits to support and to guide teachers with respect to the physical education program, and to suggest ideas and simple activities that can be done. As you know, Many schools do not have the facilities, neither the infrastructure to have proper, well-established programs, and therefore these are inhibiting factors for these schools. We've heard ad infinitum about the benefits of physical education and the cognitive benefits, etc., the health benefits. But unless we have something in place, and this is my humble opinion, unless we have something in place that rewards students for taking part in physical education at the SEA level, because you find that the subjects that are examined are the ones that are really focused on. So maths, English language arts, and creative writing, heavy focus is done on that. Students go to lessons almost every day so that they can become better in those areas to try to get their school of choice. And unless we do something with physical education where it is examinable and where it contributes to that SEA mark, then we're not going to have students and teachers focus on that. They will only focus on the subject that contribute to the SEA mark. I would like to see that some credit system is given to students who participate in physical education, and some marks are awarded towards the SEA total mark, the composite score, so that they are forced. Because we've been speaking year after year, day after day about the importance and the need to get involved in sports, and we're not seeing it happening. Unless we do something drastic like that, I don't think we'll get any headway.
Okay, and I have one question, and this question is directed to Mr. Hufis from Mr. Ganesh. What contributions does the World Volleyball Federation contribute to the school curriculum or to community outreach?
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Sure, sir.
Mr. Pritchard, can you repeat it again? I didn't hear quite well.
All right, Ms. Cox, could you read it a little louder for Mr. Hafiz? Thanks.
What contributions does the World Volleyball Federation contribute to the school curriculum or to community outreach?
Well, as an international volleyball federation, that is not their responsibility. We need to be very clear. International federations, all affiliated to the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, they have some social programs, but this is not their responsibility. We are focused on high performance athletes, high performance events, in order to have a program, a 4-year continuous program of continental championships, professional leagues, international or intercontinental championships, world events, and Olympic Games. This is what international federations do. Nevertheless, FIVB, the International Volleyball Federation, as well as FIFA, which is, I would like to say, perhaps, I don't want to make a mistake, but for me, is the most wealthiest international federation, IF. For me, it is. I don't know, maybe, but my number tells me that soccer is the richest sport in the world right now as we speak. We do have programs, social programs, and for that we have development programs that we carry out in each country. For instance, in FIVB, we have a very wide development program for undeveloped countries and zones. We provide, in the past, we have provided, for instance, in Norseca, let me talk about what I handle. We provided $1.5 million per year, distributed among national federations, 41 national federation and regional members within the zone of Central America and the Caribbean. Today, we also provide the same amount, and we provide equipment, not only for the national federation, but also for the national federation to take the equipment to the schools. Like President Mushtaq in Trinidad, he must take part of the equipment that we provide to the school program, and he has done so. So now we are increasing equipment, because without equipment, we are not able to do sport. We need the equipment. We need the infrastructure. For instance, we provide also volleyball floors To the university in Trinidad and Tobago, we also provided volleyball floors, not only to the National Federation, not only to the community. So this helps a lot in order to enhance the activity of the sport. So development activities within the International Volleyball Federation is very important. And there is an important budget, annual important budget, as we speak, that surpasses the $10 million worldwide. And this goes directly to the community, to the undeveloped zones, and to the undeveloped national federations. Of course, keeping the distance with soccer, football, because they provide a lot of money. They make a lot of money also from the World Cup and other things. So that's maybe that answers your question. If it's not, let me know and I will try to explain it better.
All right. Can we take one more, Rahima?
This question is directed to Mr. Samuel Badri. It is from Ms. Karen Lawrence Ince, and she asks, the CEO at the Ministry of Education wants PE taught to every child in all levels of school life. I wonder where Ministry of Education is with this pronouncement.
Yeah, like I mentioned, it is policy. It is in the curriculum. It is mandatory that all students at the primary school level are exposed to a quality physical education program. There's a prescribed curriculum that teachers must follow. It is recommended that at least once per week. Some schools do it more than once. Some schools do it twice per week. And depending on the level, it is done, 15 minutes at the infant level to 20 minutes, and the higher you go, the longer it is. So it is mandatory. All schools, I want to repeat that, all schools, all classes, all students must be part of a quality structured physical education program. It is not longer go outside and play for 15, 20 minutes. There's a prescribed curriculum that must be followed. Obviously, there are inhibiting factors, like I mentioned before. Schools may not have the necessary equipment or space or whatever it is, and there is where the curriculum officers and Ministry of Education lend support so that schools can do what they can given their unique circumstances. But at the end of the day, all students must be exposed to some sort of physical education program by a prescribed curriculum from the Ministry of Education.
And I also have a question, a second question from that same contributor, and she asks you, what is the nature of the relationship between Ministry of Sport and Ministry of Education with regards to sport development at both primary and secondary level?
Who is the question for? For me?
This is from Mr. Samuel Badri.
I was just trying to unmute there. Some good questions there from Dr. Ince. There is collaboration between the Ministry of Sport and the Ministry of Education, as well as the Ministry of Health, in planning programs that are directed to schools. As a matter of fact, the Ministry of Sport has a physical education and sport department that liaises with the Ministry of Education. So there is collaboration. I think there should be more collaboration. The Ministry of Sport can lend itself some more to the Ministry of Education in terms of capacity building. We need our teachers to have the capacity to implement the prescribed curriculum. In many cases, teachers are not confident, and in some cases, they're not competent to deliver the curriculum as basic as it may be. And that's a fact. Many of them may not have gone through any sort of formalized training. At the time when they would have studied, physical education might have been optional and not compulsory. Now it is. In the Bachelor of Education program, physical education is compulsory. So all teachers who are coming through the system now would have gone through some sort of formalized training. I think there's greater need for collaboration between the Ministry of Sport. In as much as there is some, much more can be done.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Cox. It's now 9:53. We are into the second half of extra time, and there's still so much information that can be withdrawn from this discussion that can be realized. We heard most persons talk about opportunities. We heard persons talk about policy driving sport within primary schools. and the entire discussion was around and surrounded the importance of getting our young people and our youths involved, being on the vehicle from very early so that they don't miss the bus. We have to ensure that those policies are driven, as Larry and Christopher and Samuel alluded to, from a very early age. We spoke about the importance of getting parents involved. And these are all things that we have to work on. I want to thank the panelists tonight for the loads of information shared with us. I want to thank the participants who joined in and tuned in through the YouTube platform. I know we have just scratched the surface, and this is going to continue. Thank you, Mr. Hafiz, for taking the time off of your busy schedule to join us from afar. Thank you, Samuel, for sharing with us your information. Thank you, Clayton. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Cleo. I know that you are very busy these days, but thank you for taking the time. And thank you, Mr. Pierre, my brother, for your assistance in this important discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, before I leave you, I must introduce to you our topic for next week. You do not want to miss this topic. The topic is sport tourism, a viable option. Some of the panelists for next week include Shaka Hislop, Brent Sancho, both players of that 2006 World Cup. Shaka is now on the ESPN, one of the panelists on the ESPN team. Brent Sancho, a former Minister of Sport. We also will be having joined with us Hall of Famer Bridget Adams. And of course, none other than my very good friend and very tall, much over me, Mr. Tony Gray, West Indian cricketer. And from the Ministry of Tourism, Mr. Cliff Hamilton. So you do not want to miss that series, that second part of the series next week. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the ideas. And have a wonderful evening. And may God continue to bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you.
You keep safe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Keep healthy.